made a video about a month ago going over Ugreen's new NAS lineup. In response, Ugreen gave me some information, feedback, and a ton of updates to their software, and also a 6-bay DXP 6800 to take a look at. To be honest, most countries would have told me to kick rocks, pound sand, and send someone to suffocate me with a pillow in my sleep, then blacklist me from any future projects. At least that's what my brain tells me would happen. I don't know. This odd change of pace though gives me some optimism for Ugreen, and it really makes me feel like they're putting their best foot forward here and trying to make a really great product. Let's just start with the big question people had. There has been a bit of a rumor going around, both on YouTube and even in my Discord for a little bit, about Ugreen not honoring their warranty if you install an aftermarket operating system on their NAS. You should join my Discord, by the way. Ugreen has confirmed this is not completely true. They will honor their hardware warranty if something does go wrong with another OS. So if you do something like install Windows, then use the pre-installed SSD as a games drive and wipe it to install, I don't know, Fortnite, so that it is completely clean of Ugreen's OS, as far as I can tell, you are completely out of luck in that case. There is absolutely zero software support after the fact if you screw that up. So to me, that's honestly fine. A public download for their OS would be nice though, so you can fix things if you break them. For the Kickstarter, they told me that that was a way for them to get feedback from their audience, so take that as you will. The important part is they have made all the models they are advertising and will be selling all of them. This isn't a donate and hope for the best situation. You do not need to donate if you want one of these. Speaking of not ready yet, the software. With the 4-bay NAS I looked at the first time, the software was pre-release, as was the entire unit. So it wasn't done. But now I can use some of the main selling points of their OS, Docker and VMs. So with all of that out of the way, let's have some fun with this 6-bay NAS. I have a lot of plans and ideas. The DXP 6800 Pro, don't know why it's called Pro, is pretty similar to the 6-bay, but with one major change. It's a 6-bay NAS, and that's probably one of the biggest changes you'll notice. It comes with the pretty standard 8 gigabytes of DDR5. You can still upgrade it to 64 gigabytes. It also comes with two M.2 slots you can mess around with and the internal SSD like on the 4-bay I had. This time though, I don't feel like pulling this whole thing apart, mostly because we have VMs now we can use, so installing another OS isn't a major priority to me, at least right now. Wow, this aged poorly. God help me. It also has a nice SD 4.0 slot and two Thunderbolt ports up front. And this does have two 10 gigabit Ethernet ports, which is sweet. Oh, and I forgot one minor detail. It also has the 10-core 12-thread Intel 1235U. That's actually kind of the selling point of this. And honestly, I wish the 4-bay had the option of getting this CPU in it, because oh my word, this is a heck of a CPU for this. And of course, the rest of the NAS is pretty similar besides the extra bays, CPU, and the new software. So let's just get this thing going. Putting in the drives was just as easy as it was before. Nothing new here, just two more bays. This time I've got 16 gigs of DDR5 instead of the standard 8 that it came with, so we have a little bit more RAM, I guess. With the drive and RAM in, it's almost the same as usual. The very first thing I noticed is how much louder the fans are though on the 6-bay model. It's not awful, but I really enjoyed how quiet the 4-bay was. I had a little bit more trouble this time getting everything set up though, as my computer could not actually connect to the NAS at all through the browser or the app, and this was driving me absolutely crazy. But I ended up being able to fix it by installing the Ugreen app on my phone. From here, I was able to update the NAS itself, and it finally showed up on my PC. This was really stumping me for a while, and honestly, I have no idea what made me think to update the NAS through my phone, but I figured it out. Speaking of the phone app, that's a thing that now exists, and it's pretty nifty. You can view your photos here and control pretty much everything on the NAS from here if you want. Having everything in one place is pretty cool, but I don't see a way to watch any media you have on the NAS on here. It seems this feature was removed from the NAS itself because you used to be able to download a media player on the NAS, and it's not here anymore. I reached out to Ugreen, but by the time of writing this, I haven't heard back. It's actually been quite a while. Hopefully this doesn't become a problem. Anyways, with this, we're into the NAS. The biggest new additions since I last looked at this are the addition of Docker and VMs. Seems there's still no VPN, which is unfortunate, but it's not the biggest deal ever, and I actually couldn't find a way to set up a VM outside of just using Docker to run Ubuntu. So, I mean, hey, 1 for 3, that's not bad. Docker is a great addition though, and I'm really excited for this. If the Docker containers work well, I could see this being a great way to just set up a NAS and leave it as long as it's easy to set up the Docker containers. So my favorite thing to test first is Minecraft. It was really easy, basically just plug and play. I, of course, forgot to accept the terms of service, but after that, it launched right up, and I had a Minecraft server. The fans did ramp up when starting, but after that, this used almost no CPU power and ran really smoothly. I was having issues actually getting to the terminal though to do anything. So next up, Plex. The nice thing about Plex is once it launches, you can just go right into the web GUI and don't have to worry about using the terminal if you're as dumb as I am and can't figure out basic things. I got it all configured and threw some media in the folder, but it refuses to show up here. I messed with this for a while and it just absolutely refused to show anything. I've been using Plex for years now and I've had it give me some delay showing media, but outright refusing, that has never happened. It's really frustrating. I do like the taskbar up top though. Helps me keep track of switching between Windows and the Ugreen app, writing notes about how frustrated I am. So okay, screw the Docker stuff. What about their built-in apps? I wanted to start with the media player and stream to my phone, but that's not an option anymore. So with the photo app, backing up my phone photos was really simple and it just worked. Viewing them wasn't as simple as it didn't seem it supports the files my Pixel 7 spits out. Unfortunate. It does work with my exported camera files though, which is nice. So I can view all of those on my phone really easily without having to transfer them to my Google Drive or put them directly on my phone. Okay. So something actually worked. That gave me some optimism. Let's go back to Docker. I wanted to try Nextcloud, which just refuses to launch at all. Oh my word. Qubit Torrent works great if you don't trust Ugreen to own the torrent program that you're using. Honestly, using Docker in this OS it's not ideal, is what I'll say, especially when compared to just running Linux programs normally, because why wouldn't they do that instead? Or I mean, even a VM, I don't know. So at this point, I was still waiting for Ugreen to respond to my email. So I thought, hey, we have a PCIe 4X slot. What if I just put a little graphics card in here and maybe we could game? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, that was probably a joke, unless. Actually, taking this apart wasn't too bad. Just 6 screws on the back, the screws holding the fans and the actual chassis on. Then we just slide the whole thing off. Really similar to the 4-bay, but the screws on this one weren't torqued to absolute hell and back. Now we have easy access to the boot SSD for changing it out to something else, and the PCIe 4X slot. Also, don't forget to take the cover off of that slot. Now, I could have put something for more storage in, like this PCIe to M.2 adapter, or I could try to fit a GPU in here and play some games. I did want to test it first though, so I put in this random old AMD card I had lying around and tried to boot. It actually started the GPU, but had no video output. So I took a PCIe riser and hooked a GTX 650 up, and no video output out of that either. Not looking good. Just for fun, I got a PCIe riser and put my GTX 1650 in, and it worked. It actually had display out to the monitor. That's so freaking cool. Oh my God. Problem is, this won't fit at all. So I took the heatsink off and removed the fan, then tried to put it in, but it was still making some contact on the VRM heatsink and the main heatsink. So this is my truck bed. Yep, we're doing this. I got my drill out and hacked off a tiny little bit of the heatsink. This is a GTX 1650, so I think the cooling realistically will not be affected much by this tiny bit of heatsink coming off. I mean, my parents made the doctors do something similar to me as a baby, and I have been there since. Okay. With that chopped off and cleaned up with some cancer in a can, I just had to reassemble the GPU, and it fits. Oh my God, it is so close. Oh, but it fits. I did have to do another minor adjustment off camera, but we're not going to talk about that. After that though, this case, well, it didn't fully fit, but I'm not worried about that. It's close enough, okay? It looks good enough. I know this could have gotten a proper low profile card, but I decided to do this really late into the video and just didn't have time to get one shipped. So here we are. This is a proof of concept mostly, or something. I don't know, excuses. Either way, it's in and we still can see one port, the DVI port. So I hooked it up and oh boy. Now it will not output video at all. As it turns out, DisplayPort to DVI ports are not bi-directional. Good to know. So I went on Amazon and got an adapter that works. That scared me. Now, Windows time. Windows installed great, and besides there being no drivers for the 10 gig ports, it worked just fine. I had to use an Ethernet to USB-C adapter for that, and we got internet. Now it's time for installing games and that whole thing. The CPU fan gets really loud installing games. It's actually really distracting, but I mean, that's fine. It actually was installing at like 300 megabytes per second, which is pretty good. What really matters in this test, it doesn't matter, is the games. So let's start off with BioShock Infinite. It ran at an average of 135 FPS with a 1% low of 38. It was totally playable. It had a few stutters, but you could totally play this on a NAS. Oh man, that's so freaking cool. The GPU was pegged out, but really hot, and the CPU really struggled to stay anywhere close to cool, but it worked. Kind of worked. What about Minecraft? The CPU is pegged out at 90C pretty much the entire time, but I did get an average of 336 FPS with a 1% low of 38. Nice. Doomer and Gloom was a stuttery mess. It was really hard to play with really bad input lag, and it was even dropping my inputs, something I don't think I've ever really seen in a PC game, at least in the past few years. But it somehow averaged out at 43 FPS with a 1% low of 8 FPS. Unplayable, but better than I expected. So what about something a little bit less demanding? Well, Factorio actually did really great. Ignore my awful factory, but the CPU stayed cool between 60 and 70 degrees, and the game worked perfectly fine, which is great. I don't know why I saved this for the end, but regular Windows ran fine with the CPU. I tried Ubuntu for a little bit. That was basically perfect. Multitasking and 4K video worked fine. But I mean, you saw the games ran mostly fine, so I don't know why I put the C in. Whatever, it worked. This is the point where I rewrite the end of my script because Ugreen responded after 2 weeks when I was just about to do a voiceover. So they did inform me, virtual machines are still not here yet, and the media player app was removed and is being updated for the release. While we're waiting for this response, I got some help from a YouTube member. You should do that whole thing, by the way. And Ugreen, who eventually also sent me a guide for using Docker with the NAS. I was gonna go ahead and completely revisit my whole Docker situation and actually do it the right way because I just didn't know how to use it on the NAS. But when I did that, I got an update and I thought, I should probably update this before I do anything. So I said, hey, let's update. One restart later, and all of my settings and configurations are completely gone for everything. My photo app, everything in Docker, my settings, just pretty much everything. My files are all still here and working. It's just all my settings are completely gone. And this was fine before the update. So honestly, I am just going to leave it as is and move on. I understand this is a pre-release system, but this is incredibly disappointing. Honestly, if you need something that is quick to set and forget, the OS has improved a lot stability-wise, but it still seems like the best way to utilize the amazing hardware in here is with another OS that is not Ugreen's. Something like Proxmox, TrueNAS, Unraid, I mean, even getting Ubuntu or Windows on here and just running programs on there if you're new to all of this. Seeing the progress made thus far in the past couple of months of updates, it does give me hope that once this is fully released, the software will be ready to use and actually work for the most part.